Alright, everyone. Today we are doing the Minecraft plugin part 3. Let's get this up. Alright. Let me get my. So last time we ended because there was a Java issue because of how I configure my machine for various types of development. So what I've done is kind of clear away part of that slate and put in a more standard uh, Java build. And from there, we are going to proceed. So things will be a little bit more familiar to everyone. One second, because I gotta remember what drive I put it in. Yep. Okay. So you guys will remember that we have a special place for this. It's our workspace. And, oh, there's the test server. So let me just show you what the startup app that we're using is. It's very much the most basic thing. It basically says we're running a Java program. We're giving it this much memory. It's a jar. The name of the jar is this. Don't even worry about the rest of this. But basically, it just says stuff about the window and how we're handling it. And then pause is actually prevents the window from closing. Um, so that when you do this, you actually keep your window up, and you can see what is actually going on. Now, when you load the first time for any new server that's like 1.79 or 10, you have to agree to the ULA. And during the first load, it's going to create a ULA text file. So you'll have to go in here and actually change this ULA equals to true. What you're agreeing to is not anything that we've done. This is Mojang's, Mojang, and you can actually read the whole thing here. Um, I'm not going to. I've already done it. But good reading for you if you are one of those rare people that actually read stuff like that. So then we close it, and it says blah blah blah, and it loads. Now, when you load Spigot, let me just check what it says here. Oh. Okay, so it's just asking for an extra argument um, to set a max, because we set a min, but we didn't set a max for a Minecraft server. Now you'll notice that Spigot has a bunch of already kind of pre-configured world modifiers, um, and it sets them by world. It actually does some anti-cheating, some saving of the process and things like that. Um, and you notice that it also has this beginning UUID conversion. So if you had an existing server, it would attempt to do the conversion for you, which literally, when they say could take a long time, depending upon how much stuff you have, it could take a ridiculous amount of time. Now it says, here's the part that we have to look for. And this is kind of important because this is how you troubleshoot the creation of your plugins. This section right here. Error could not load the plugin that we store in wherever it is. And then it tells us why it couldn't load that plugin. Okay? So the reason it says is invalid plugin exception. And then it tells us the error, Java language, null. So this is the key part. Null pointer exception, also known as an NPE. Basically, what that means is when it compiled it and started to load, it got a null answer, but didn't have any way to handle the null answer for something. So what caused that? So let's look for a cause. No, 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 no. Oh, there it is. Caused by NPE at, where is it at? Oh, look, it's on line 7. So let's just jump back to our code. Let's load our Eclipse. By the way, I no longer need this folder, as you don't need it either. Notice I don't get that error anymore. Yes, workspace. So it believes that there is a missing or an invalid statement that has resulted in a null answer, but we haven't provided any sort of like result for null answer. Excuse me. So let's find out what that null answer is. Line 7 is, it is this. It is actually our variable. So we know that for whatever reason, uh, maybe it couldn't find Git plugin KOTC tutorial. There could be several reasons for that. It could be the name has changed or something like that, and it has because it's now super awesome. So, oh, let me, hey Backbeard, let me put you guys on hold for 1 second. I think I have someone at the door, and then we'll continue with this. Hey, Fultrum. Oh, hey, Jesus. Okay. So, alright, so we know that the issue is line 7. And we should focus on that, and because it's an NPE, we should identify that not this, but something in this part is resulting in a null answer. So then what happens when we call it? Well, then it gets down to like this line, and it goes, oh, all bajiggity, and then it's all bajiggity here because it can't, it's basically what this equals is NPE. And NPE, null pointer exceptions, just don't really work. So we could, if we needed to really use this, because this is really just an example to show you, because we could set it here this one place also, instead of calling it back from this. Alright, or we could just change that back, and let's see if that resolves it. And if it doesn't, then we can think about other ways to fix it, because that's the thing. Um, you can, and I'm purposely doing this in kind of a like I don't know kind of way, because I want you guys to think creatively. I'm giving you the tools. You know how I found which line was the problem. So the question is, what can we do about it? You know, like how do we fix that error? And there's lots of different ways. We could statically assign that. We could write a different argument. Um, there's several options in our lighthouse or our wheelhouse of solutions. Let's do a quit. Actually, why is it not working? It's quit. Stop. Yep, stop. Okay. Sorry, I do everything through an automated system now, and I'm like, what is the command? So then we're going to come back to our test server, and we are going to restart it, which won't do anything, because what did I do? Why did I do that? Because I'm stupid, that's why. Let's do what I wanted to do. Here we go. So normally it would overwrite that one because I want to use that one, but I actually changed the name just a hair. Oops, and I deleted the wrong one. I deleted the old one. I should wake up, Ryan. Wake up! So let's go back to export that. Export, jar file, just leave everything selected. Um, I'm tempted to put the dash in there because I want the name of the file. It really shouldn't be the defining attribute. Um, Besides, the name of the file is actually with zeros and stuff, so I just want to keep the same standard all the way across. And you can see like the standard I was using was kind of this one, except instead of periods, I like to use. Actually, this is backwards. I should have gone dash underscore. Anyway, I do like to use the other way. I'm just doing it weird. Quit. I just did it a second ago. Yeah, it's not the same error. Does it load the same file? Stop. So my brain just has to like think for a second, like, what am I doing? It's like when you, the other day I was playing Dota 2 and someone was like, oh, how do you do such and such? And it was like, how do you create like the little X? And for the life of me, when they asked me, I was like, oh yeah, it's and then I spent looking at the keyboard. I'm like, how do I do it? Like I do it all the time. And so literally we just had to play a little bit, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh yeah, it's Control Alt. Anyway, let's see what happened when we made that change. Nothing. It's still an error. It's an NPE error, and it still has on the same line. So we've not fixed it at all. Um, and there honestly could be several reasons for that. Let me see what the most likely is. Um, it's probably an issue with like the tutorial package because the thing that's being loaded is called tutorial. So what we could do instead of like constantly going through this and trying to fix it about a billion different ways, ask myself the question: is it truly important that we call the plugin from this source? No. We could actually call everything here from here and just be fine. And this is the unique thing that we're going to be able to call it and want to call it anyway. So if we just called it TOTC tutorial, Ryan can spell, and we want to put quotes around that because it's a string and we want to capture it. Because remember, strings can contain spaces because a space is a character. Um, so we save that, and then we export it. And also, let's say you're having a problem, you think there's something wrong with that line, you're like, I'm not really sure what's wrong with that line. Um, I kind of have a good idea what's wrong with it. Well, later on, we're going to cover the same topic, so I don't want to get into it right yet. But just the process of understanding, oh god, I should fix that stupid line argument. I just don't like errors in my startup code. It drives me nuts. Alright, and let's see here. Now, oh, look at that. NPE on line 7. Because, why? Because I didn't copy over the stupid code. Once again, let me just make this easier on myself. Because one of the things I normally do when I'm actually coding is I will open up two windows. I'll open the test server window, and then I'll have like my workspace window. And so then I'm constantly just literally copying them over to that spot. 821.246. Yeah, that's the right one. Get rid of. Wait, the 813 file. Well, this has been wrong the whole time. So, it may literally, whatever I just did was totally useless. It probably was fixed a second ago. Alright, that is good enough for me. Test server, start up. Let me add something to the code. Alright, so let's see what we got here. Scroll up, scroll up, scroll up. Oh, look, there's no answer. In fact, what does it say? KOTC tutorial loading, KOTC tutorial version 000, which is exactly what I wanted. And there, that's it. That is, so now the plugin is literally loaded. So if we took it one step further, and oh, that explains why that went all weird. If we take it one step further, and we actually load Minecraft, everyone loves the launcher. I just can't wait till they allow me to customize what everyone is doing on the server. Like, get a special download packs and stuff like that. That is definitely one of the things I'm waiting for the most. Although when that happens, we'll be having to switch over from a Bukkit API to a Minecraft API, which is virtually identical for a lot of aspects. The code is different, air quotes, but realistically it's not. Alright, so once this thing loads, we're going to go to multiplayer, we're going to go to add a server, local host, call it test server, and done. Looky there. One, it's loading and running. That's always good to have. And then the second one is, oh, and you can see as I start to join, you can ignore that error because it's just being stupid. But totally unrelated to that. Let me just redo that. Come on. I don't know why it crashed. Probably because I don't have that one argument set. No, I'm just kidding. Wow. Java platform has stopped working. I wonder if it's because I'm running a... Oh. 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 I know what's going on. Okay. So, in my test server, I have a bunch of firewalls and stuff at my house. Like actual professional firewalls. And I probably have not set something up to process through on the server side for ports. So, that's one thing that you guys might have an issue with. Let me think, should I resolve it? Should I give you guys how to fix that problem? It's so many different types. Because the alternative solution is to actually take the server into what's called offline mode. You should never do this on a regular server, but see, no one can connect into where I'm at right now. Online mode we set to false. And what that does is all this like UID checking and account checking and all that stuff is actually not performed. And yes, you do have to restart the server. Now you'll notice that I'm not doing something called a reload. Um, and that is literally because I don't believe in reloads. I think that reloads are the bane of plugin programmers. Because every single time you come in and you try to set up, that was the issue right there. Oh, maybe not. Maybe I got an actual different issue. Interesting. What could be my issue? I could have a too high of a Java version. That is muy potential. Um, wonder if I can't load my other one. Stop. I always got something weird going on at my house. It's all this crap I do. Alright, let me see what I got. Oh, that might be it. I'm not even thinking about that. No, it shouldn't have that problem. Sorry, I'm just checking some of my settings really fast. And they are all perfectly set up right now. Yeah, I'm running Java 7 super, super well. Um, yeah, close that, close that. Do I have another Java thing running? Nope. Then the next thing I'm going to do is test to see. Aha. Do I have the server running? No, I do not. So whatever this Java process that's running. Oh, it was Clips. Okay. So I have to die. Um, it is possible that there was a memory issue with my Java. Enabling. KOTC tutorial is being enabled. This is our exact line for what we're looking for. And actually, because of the way it's set up, you can actually see that it believes it's KOTC tutorial. And the spelling is correct. So it should have been popped up in there anyway. And actually, you can see this is like partially redundant because KOTC tutorial is already there. Usually what I would do, well, we'll talk about that in a second after I get this weird ass Minecraft thing fixed, which I may have to just like, because it's only doing it when I load. Oh, I wonder if it's loading something weird from my resource pack, like my, because I had like this weird Optifine setup that I was playing with. That has to be it. It's like trying to load something that's being all bajiggity. So let's just make this super easy for you. Go back to defaults because I don't really care about. Come on, go back. There you go. Alright. That should be different now. That's exactly what it was. There was a problem with one of my stupid resource packs. Alright. So I can get it loaded. I don't really care about anything else, but this, because I wanted you guys to see KOTC's tutorial is loading. Yeah, yeah. Alright, so that's all I wanted you guys to see was that the plugin was loading from this, but the plugin doesn't do anything right now. Okay, so we gotta make it do something, and hopefully do something good. Now, the one thing I will add, and I didn't do it this, let me set this back because the offline part is not an issue. Alright, so the one thing I did not remove class path. Nope. Close all to the right. Close. There we go. Sorry. Alright, so the one thing I did that I normally would not do is I just kind of drag and drop. I moved the KOTC tutorial plugin over. Normally, I would keep a record of all the plugin versions I have in my own workspace. It's like my own personal backup, and also I can go back to that individual version. However, because we're using GitHub now, we don't have to really do that because GitHub's maintaining all that stuff. But if you wanted, like, while you're keeping your own repository, especially like if you're doing it on a laptop that doesn't have internet access, or for some reason you don't have internet access for a while, I would highly recommend that you keep a versioning chest of the different versions that you're going through. Worst case scenario, you can always like revert back. Alright, so now if you notice, let's just go and fix it. Let's show you how the process works. So you can see that it's like, okay, Spigot MC, we can change his perm gen size. Let's just like fix the errors that are there. And even though this is a warning, not an error, let's go ahead and do it. So once again, stop doing that. Okay. I keep like opening another Chrome tab, which like screws up my text on the feed. Alright. www.spigotmc.org/wiki/changing permgen size. Once again, I know the answer. It's asking for a max, and I know how to set that, but I want to show you guys how easy it is with the information they're providing to literally get everything you want. So, you can read all the way through all this, but basically what they're asking for is for you to add this right here. Okay? This piece right here we also don't have. We have, let's just show you what we actually have. So you can compare what it is. So we can look at like what it is. Okay, so XMX we have. So we actually have this part, which is the top end. They don't care that we don't have the bottom end part. What they care about is this variable right here. So we can come in here and actually add it, make sure there's a space between that and the jar, and that would be sufficient. Literally, just adding that line, and it should be fine just as it is. Now notice that they're doing no GUI and stuff like that, but just because it's not exactly the same doesn't mean it's something not good enough. So let's see if that actually fixes it. Alright. Oops. If you have a problem like this, where something like locks up, you have to kind of go to your task manager. You're going to look for a Java one. Now, you already know that Eclipse runs on Java, so that's one of your Java runs. Sometimes you can go to applications and just, you can't really close the application because you're closing the command window. So choose the one that you believe to be the right one. I just closed Minecraft, not the right one. And process, yes. You'll see this window kind of stay the same, but then nothing else is going to change. And then we can close it. And then we can start back up. Now, if we did something wrong, when we did this, it would actually say there's already a PID, failed to bind. Ah, see, perfectly, right here. Worst case scenario is the thing completely buggers up, and you get the quick fix is just to reload it. There is another way to do it if that's not the case. There you go. So eventually we found the one that was active and we killed it. And that removed the active threading and bind for that. And now we are able to load. And you notice that it no longer has that error anymore. Okay. And also, one thing I want to notice about this page is that it actually is expecting between 1 gig and 2 gigs of memory. But then its extra perm size is only 128 megabytes. So it's not taking up that much for this process. in this process is definitely something that Spigot uses to make things more efficient. All right, so let's continue. Don't forget that you guys can ask any questions you need at any point, just during the process. You don't have to wait for me to like ask for questions. So the next part is for us to get back Eclipse, obviously, because we need a program. So we're going to load Eclipse back up. And now that we've resolved that issue, and I think I have this stuff set up from your perspective still, we want, and probably, while I'm waiting for this load, two things. One, Tuesdays and Wednesdays are going to be Minecraft plugin days. Yesterday there was no stream because of technical issues, not related to Minecraft or anything like that. It was literally some maintenance being done in my building that caused things to be unavailable for me at the time, like my internet. Now, all right, so let's continue. So you notice how it says this is yellow underneath? Well, if you mouse over it, you can actually see that the reason is because it's not used. Now, sometimes when Eclipse says something's not used, it actually is, but in this case, it literally is not. And if you remove it and nothing turns red after you save it, that's probably correct. If not, you can just Control Z, which undoes and puts it back to the way it was. So, let's continue, but you know what? I'm just going to clean up this code just a little bit because we actually don't need this stuff. This was all literally to show you guys. That's all it was. So we're going to clean that up. And then if you notice from down here, it would actually say KOTC tutorial is being enabled. That's what we want. In fact, we could probably cut out that extra space because I believe... Thinking. Yes, there is a space before it. And I know that because there's a space between this, and there was no space that we created. Alright, so we've done that, and now you're like, okay, great, let's commit it and all that stuff and make a suggestion on how we should change the code. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go to Maven. We want to update the project. Remember, this updates your Maven code. Then the next thing we want to do is go back to GitHub. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Loading GitHub. GitHub. There it is. Now for me, I have to check it, but obviously for you, you would just be like logging into it. I'm waiting for mine to load. While it's loading, so Tuesdays and Wednesdays are going to be Minecraft plugin days. That will give us more days to kind of process this stuff. Perfect. You can see that it's a forked. If you're really unsure, though, I can always go into options and check to make sure I'm logged in as test, not myself. So we come back to here, and you notice there's like uncommitted changes. So we're going to create a summary of what this is, and we're going to say fix, let's say, enable fix, or yeah, enable fix, because we're fixing the enable. Doesn't really matter what you put in there. It's just kind of like a short thing to remember. So I've committed that, and now I'm going to sync it to the branch. But remember, you're not syncing to me. You're syncing to your forked repository. So now we have to go into your forked repository. So why is it trying to load this stuff? Oh, Trivoli. Yeah, I never use this stupid thing. It's got Bing on it and all this crap. And then, sorry, I'm just neurotic about having everything set a certain way. There we go. Let's move on from the craziness. Boop. There we go. Oh, it's still got something down there. Oh, because I went back to the same page. That's what I like to see. Okay. So let's go to GitHub. And I'll expand it out. And Fultrum test. Let me la 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 la. Alright. And then bring it back. Yeah, sure, whatever. Alright, so now we've got, if we go to Fulton Test, we actually have a more up-to-date version and a fixed version of the code. So now we gotta, like, actually say we've already forked it, so now we want to be like, okay, I want to give this code back to the main website, like the main group. Oh, I was just looking at that. Sorry. There we go. That is literally as easy as it takes. So let me go back to the process. You can do a pull request. I know it seems like it should be like push, and I really think it should be push. But you're actually trying to pull your code into their code. And it actually tell you what all the differences between your code are. Everything from like little dashes to removing that, to removing this. Everything that's saved in your version that's different from our version is now everything in here. So we create that pull request. You call it something, whatever you want to call it. In this case, it automatically defaults to the last fix that you had. But I ask you guys, if you're doing something like this, be specific and leave a comment that tells me what you're doing. Like, fix the plug in enable process / error. Create pull request. So now, if you had write access, you would automatically get in there. Okay? But I'm trying to show you guys what it would look like from my perspective. So now, let's not use that browser. Let's open a new one of these. Okay. And github.com. And oh, it's saving that cookie cache. Damn it. Alright, I need a new browser. What is a new browser I can use? I cannot use Opera because I use Opera for something else. GitHub.com. Oh, good. It's already set up as me. That actually works out perfectly. Alright, so I will have a new... oh, look, it tells me that there's a fix in there. And then I literally are able to merge the pull request. Boom. Confirm merge. And that is literally what I would do. And now, the change that you made, I can obviously revert it. But the change that you have suggested is now literally part of our official code. So like if the next person comes in and does something, they're actually going to get that fix. And they actually can see this, see how it's like broken out by like a little line and then a section for this day's events. We can actually see that there was a request and that we've accepted the request and that it was all processed on the same day. So anyone who looks at the code now will actually have that enable fix code applied to exactly how they wanted it. There you go. Man, I need to stop coughing. And this has been like a week that this stupid cough has been in there. And that is literally how the process works. So what I was hoping to complete on last week, we just basically completed the fundamentals of the flow, how to set things up, how to move things around, how to do some things. So now we can actually start coding the plugin. So the first thing we want to do is we need to discuss what exactly is it that we need to accomplish. Now, I feel like we wrote this stuff down. If not, I can just like pull it out of my butt. Pop. Alright. That is not that. That is not that. 810. No. Oh, no. News. Yep. Okay. So I did actually save it on the news. So here's the thing. We're going to need to do four things for this to be a working plugin. We're going to need to create a method to create a cuboid. We're going to have some sort of data saving. And by the way, the order in which these occur does not necessarily. Nice, Jesus. Does not necessarily indicate the order that we are going to do them. In fact, data saving, we will probably create the handlers for the data saving first. And we're going to test that out, and we're going to want to like make sure, because data saving is a fundamental key component for many plugins. Anything that wants to save any sort of um, persistent information through restarts. Because you don't always save data through restarts. The best way to think about this is there's going to be a couple levels of data that we're going to save. And we'll talk about that probably first. So we're probably going to do the data saving first. Claim check is literally after we create a cuboid and it's already been saved. Like if you do something, is there a process to check it? Now this would actually probably be fourth, because before we do any of that, we actually need to create a listener. So the real order of events is probably a data saving method. Then we're going to create some. Then we'll create either a way to create the cuboid. That's probably it. So it's going to be 1, 2, and then we're going to create a listener because we want to see what's happening, and then we're going to create a claim check. So these two can be reversed. These two can kind of be reversed, but really the one that has to occur first is data saving. So let's talk about the different levels of data saving. Okay, so the first level of data saving is kind of like a cache. When the server restarts, everything goes away. And if we don't save it into a more permanent state, those things will really go away forever. So things that I would potentially do in only that first level temporary cache, which is faster. That's why we save it in that temporary cache place, is because we're constantly accessing that data, so it's going to be much faster. The second thing is some data doesn't need to be saved forever. For example, we don't need to save forever games. Like when a game starts, you have to actually load all the game variables, where the chest is at, all that stuff into a, or there's a game going on, who has how many points going on for the score. You save all of that in the short-term cache, and then as the game goes on, you record, and when the game ends, you usually flush all that data away. But let's say for some reason the server is restarted in the middle of the game. Well, there's not been the flushing of the data on that temporary cache, so you would want to just have it disappear. You wouldn't want to save it forever, especially since the resources required to move stuff from temporary cache to permanent storage is not super heavy duty, but it can get cumbersome at times because of how it works. So let's first talk about how we're going to set up that first layer cache, because we got to set up the first layer cache before we can set up 3 layers of cache. And let me get this up. Wrong place. Come on, I just saw you. There it is. You're on that screen now. Alright, give me 1 second to pull this. Because I'm literally going to pull from what we've already done. I have like this little area that I've already planned to pull stuff from. There we go. Perfect. Okay. First level cache. Okay. It's called a hash map. A hash map, if you think about it, is, and I'm going to actually kind of I'm going to give you a really good visual example of what type of data storage we're doing at times. Drive, create a spreadsheet, drag that ball hockey over. Okay, so when you think of a hash map, think of it as 2 fields in a table. Okay, field 1 is going to be your key. Field 2 is going to be your entry. I have no idea why I feel the need to do this, but clearly I do. Alright. Nope. Alright. There we go. I'm like, why is it not? There we go. So key and entry. Let's also color code them a little bit different. Let's get some of these in here. Let's go white on black so they're different. And boom. So whatever the name of our hex map is going to be the name of this sheet. Okay? And we only care about columns A and B. Because hash maps, well, let me show a little bit further and then I'll say what they can do. Okay, we're going to call this hash map. Well, first of all, let's call it hash map. Then we'll say dash, well, I don't know, example. So creative. Hash map example. All right, so the key is going to be, let's say, player names, okay, or UUIDs. So the key is going to be a UUID. And so you would have in entry 1, let's say that's the UUID. It's much longer, but let's say the key is 1. UUID 1. You're very unique. And actually, because this is AF1230000A9. Let's say that's actually your UUID. Okay, so this first column, insert one above, is UUID. Actually, undo that. I know how to do it. UUID. There we go. So the key type is UUID. And the entry type, well, this is the data we're saving. So let's say the entry that we're saving is, why is it 3 layers? Why not 4 or 5 or any 2 only? It really depends on the data type method we're going to get to. So there's really very little options for quick pulling data. So when the game loads, layer 1 has to always be some sort of like quick accessible data that's loaded in cache. It's just a fundamental kind of building block of programming. The second part of where data can be stored, you could do like a flat file, you could do SQL, you could do all these other things, but really where you choose your second layer is going to determine if you even want a third layer or if you need a third layer. So you can do a lot of stuff with just 2. 3 is sometimes a little redundant. But the reason that we might do a third one is so that we have almost like a backup of the second one. Or we pull individual sets down. So, for example, in the method that we're going to use, I don't want to give too much away, but we're going to use SQL, and we're going to effectively have two main pillars. We're going to have the hash map, and then we're going to have the SQL data. And within SQL data, we're actually going to have a quick reference table, and then a big long table that has like all the data in it. So the reason that we do that and we break them up into different components is for speed and efficiency. The cache is the most efficient way to pull data, but it also clutters up memory and stuff like that. So you don't want to store everything in a hash map. Like you don't want to like start your server and then have it like literally hash map cache every single user, because if you got 10 users, that's fine. You can totally do that. But if you have 50,000 users on cache, which is not that hard to get when you have a server running for a while, that would be 50,000 records of every single piece of data they have, and that user might not even be logged in. So it's just such a waste of memory and resources on your server that you only want to load stuff as it becomes necessary, and you want to take it away from the loading process as quickly as possible, within reason, because as things get farther out in the layers, they are less accessible. They take resources to pull up, but they're saved in a way where they don't consume resources. So our layer 2 and layer 3 are actually going to be in a method that is SQL based. We're going to use MySQL, and we're going to do it in a way that keeps the data readily accessible. Like the layer 2 is always going to be persistent. It's going to be like a quick reference guide, for things to be called. And if I showed you our website design, it does this a lot, where it has a table of the actual data, and then it has a reference table about one or more of those fields. Fields that are called very frequently, like a username, you know? And so we would want to associate UUID with username very quickly, and then we can pull that into cache and say, oh, great, we're going to use this very, very quickly, and we have a very quick way to look it up because we're not having to do a search for every single field data table and kind of narrow it down to just one. We literally are just going to call that table that reference table as a whole and say, yeah, when you see this UUID or you see this username, they equal each other. Boom. It's faster. It's layer 2. And then layer 3 is your permanent home, where it contains all the data and all the information. But in order to get that stuff, you have to be more specific on your query. There's going to be more resources taken to pull that data. And you know what? That's fine, because the alternative, like I said, is to store it all in memory cache, which is even a worse solution because then it just loads everything and hogs everything up. And then you gotta have a machine that's like literally, basically you're playing a machine that has 50,000 or whatever your total usage of players is. Every single player that's ever logged in is loaded all the time, and that's just, it's so slow, so slow. So in this case, key is a UUID. Entry is, um, let's say, in our example, I'm trying to create an easy example because, oh, good. So the entry is, and this is the type of data it's going to be. So the type of data is going to be a string, and that's one of the most common types of data strings there are. Because a string allows us great flexibility with whatever we know. Because remember I said a string is just characters. So it can be a letter, it can be a number, it can be a space, it can be a dash, it can be a symbol. It doesn't really matter what it is. A string contains all of them. So the table is called example, UUID, and then there's only one associated data value. Now, Not to get confusing, but you can actually do something called nested values. Um, this is something we're not going to be covering probably in any of our tutorials because one, it's super advanced, and two, uh, it has some really strong negative sides. So if we do cover it, it's going to be quite a ways away that we actually cover nested values or nested entries. But a nested entry would kind of be like this. You would have um, player and or you would do something like this. You would be the answer is um, Fultrum, comma 213, comma um, owner, comma um, and then we'll say 90,000. And so you're like, oh, what does that mean? Well, because I've done it in a string, I could save a whole bunch of stuff in there. I literally can just be like this user ID, and I can save every single piece of data about him in one hash map. But here's the problem with this. It's not a quick reference guide anymore. All of a sudden, you've done the opposite, and now you got to parse this out. You got to be like, okay, well, the Fulcrum comes over here, and this is like a username, and then like the experience points he has is 213, and then his rank is owner, and then the amount of gold he has is 90,000. So you got to like parse that out every single time you're going to use this. So that's why we don't. That's why we're like, let's say this is hash map example, and let's say instead of example, this is how much it's the hash map of money. Well, now we only need to store one thing, 90,000. Okay? So every single time there's a question that comes up, I'm literally going to write a get statement, get this UUID, and then get entry, or sorry, it'd be like get key, and then this will be there, and then it'll be like get entry, and the entry will equal. Oh, I forgot I'm in a table. Can't do it in a table. And then the entry will equal 90,000. So it's a super easy way to be like, how much money does this guy have? Well, this guy has 90,000. And all I'm calling in my code is this part right here. Those three segments. This 90,000 is what the result is. Or I could do the opposite. Or I could do something different. I could do a code that says get key for this person, and then we can say a question. We can be like, if the get entry, if the entry is greater than 10,000, okay, then success. Else, no money. And therefore, now we've basically broken out the concept of how we find if someone has enough money to buy something or do something. And if they do, by the way, this is backwards. Sorry. If they do have enough money, then they are successful in the purchase. And then we would have a statement that says, you know, entry minus 10,000 because that's the price, minus price. And then that is the remaining money, and then therefore the remaining money gets put into the field, and then you do put entry or set entry, depending upon how you want to do it. And the set entry would be now 80,000 because you paid the 10,000 price. So this is kind of how a very, very high review of how hash maps work. Okay, so hash maps gives us two values, a key and an entry. We then use the process of getting keys and getting entries to identify what the values are. Then we use that value to do something, some task like find if they have enough money, and then if they do have enough money, we give them the item and take away their money. And then we've saved that by setting the entry to 80,000. So now this table is going to be, even though you're not going to see it, this table now updates to 80,000. And as a result of it updating to 80,000, the next time it's called, it would be there. So if if the item price was the opposite, if it was, let's say, 85,000, right? And he wanted to buy two of them, well, now his result is going to be 5,000, and that's less than 10. So the next time he does it, he's going to get no money and he's done. Because the first time he had it, because he had 9,000, but then the second time he tries it, well, it's going to do this code again all over from the beginning, and now he's only got 5,000. So this table gets updated super fast, super easy, and literally these pieces that we're using right here, this piece, this piece, and this piece, are almost identical to what we're going to do in the code. Okay, so let's do some of that, shall we? So before we go too much farther, we need to create a new package. Why? Well, this is like our main. I mean, like, I remember I told you that, like, in Java, if we weren't dealing with a plugin, this would be called main, and the file would be called main, and it's going to look for main. But the only reason it doesn't is because in our file variables, they name main, and then main becomes something else. That is all because bucket. That is pure bucket. Okay? And that was some of these things because I actually knew a little bit of Java before I started this, was very confusing because I'm like, where's the main file and where's this and where's that? So I like to separate what I'm doing as much as possible. And so the best way to do that, no, yes. So how do I answer this? This is your plugin. This is the source for that plugin. This is your first package. This is your first class. We're actually going to create now another package. So if you were to look at, should I show you this? Okay, I'm going to show you this code. So if you look at PA code, okay, from a high level view, this PA core.java is the equivalency of this KOTC Java. Each one of these folders, commands, handlers, listers, skills, is a new package. So this is a skills package, and then there's a class, repair.java. However, if you look at commands, whoa, I've created a new class for each command, but all of them are organized in one package called commands. So when the plugin loads, it loads all my commands, all my handlers, all my listeners, all my skills. The ones that are most common for you guys that you guys understand by default: command, you type something in; listener, you do something, okay? And then handlers and skills. Skills really should be a handler at this point. Handlers is custom stuff where we kind of handle data and stuff like that. And that's how PA Core was created, is we did handlers for how data was manipulated. And so let's say we had the play data handler. This is actually real code from PA Core, which we don't use anymore. And in this one, we're not using SQL. We're actually using a file. So this is actually code to take. Let me find a real easy part of it. Player safe processor. This is actually perfect. Okay. Actually, let's do the load processor, because that is actually about a hash map, and that kind of relates to what we're doing. Here we go. Player data safe processor. Nope, not load processor. Load processor. Load. Load all permissions. Load rank permissions. Here we go. Player data loader. All right. So player data loader. This is a what's called a method. In some languages, they're called functions. But the key thing to understand from this is that this is something that you call. So I literally would call player data loader and would provide an argument of a player name. Now, obviously, this doesn't work because now we're on UUID. So I would have to change this to a UUID, and then this is just the variable name. So this is the type, this is the variable name. So, and the reason that we're like, if I were to try to think, I don't want to get too far ahead. We're going to cover most of this. I just don't want to get too far ahead. But we would actually create a new folder. Let's find out where we start talking about hash maps in this code. Okay, so basically the way that this code works in brevity is that we get this file. Okay, whoops. Okay, so we get the file that's named here under play data file. If it doesn't exist, we create it. Then we go through a series of processes where we take PA core, a hash map name mining limit, and we remove the player name, and then we do it all over again. We take PA core, we take the mining limit hash map, and we put in the player name and the new mining limit. That's all it is. That is HashMap 101. You can remove an entire entry. You can put in an entry. If we go up to save, you can see that the way that we're doing that is slightly different because when we save it, we might not want to replace the entire contents. We might want to just modify it. I'm not sure if this one has modifies. I think they all have puts. Yeah, and put is the best way to do it because you already have some of the variables, so you just call those variables back in. So let's go back to load. So yeah, this is honestly the easiest way. So and if you notice, this section of code from here is all assuming that there's no file for you. So this whole section right here is creating default values for your file. So if you start the game and if you've never played before, your file doesn't exist, and therefore it adds all this stuff in. Then there's a catch, which we'll talk about, where it tries to render errors. Hash map is the way to store data. The hash map is literally like our database spreadsheet that we had. This column is your keys. It was players in that example, not UUIDs. And then the entries would be whatever the data was. So like the mining limit would be a number. Your mining limit is 5,000. And then we modify that. It's just two-column association. It's the easy way to look at it. You have a key and then an entry. A key and then an entry. The key usually has to be called first, but you could do it reverse. Like, the only problem with that is your key is something unique. You want it to be like a player name or the UUID. Whereas the entry could be, what if we had 5 people that had 5,000 points? Like, you could reverse that. You could be like, everyone who has under 5,000 now gets an extra 10,000. But a hash map is literally just a two-part expression of data. So what were we going to do? We were going to create a hash map. Because that's the first part. We got to create a hash map. And I have no problem looking at this old code. We actually can show you. So let's go back to PA core. And, well, first of all, we're going to need the import. Okay, so let's not even play that game because we know we're going to need it. So there's two ways to do this. The first way is you can type in import and you can put it in as what you need to put it in as. Actually, HashMap is actually Java, and you will notice as we go through this, anytime I have a choice between doing something that's bucket specific and doing something that is generic Java, I will nearly always go for generic Java. That looks right. Yeah, but then I'm not using it. So that's one way. I could type it in and import it like that. The alternative way is I can actually create a hash map and then come back. So the way we're going to do that is we've already created 2 variables here. Let's just create some more ones. And actually, we're going to call this hash maps, just so I can remember where my hash maps are later. So hash maps really need to be public, which means other packages and other classes can call it. We want them to be final and static. Once again, until we discuss what those differences mean, just trust me. Final, static. Okay. Um, you didn't have to. Like we remember, we took it away from the other one. We took away the active static or the final static status, and it really was fine for that example. And for 90% of this, it could be fine. But we are going to create a what's the type? You always the first thing really the first question you always want to ask yourself is what's the type? Well, it's a hash map. There is also something called a map, which is nearly identical as a hash map, but has some small differences technically. So let's not get too caught up in it right now. For right now, we're just doing a hash map. And then we're going to do a UUID, which is like what are the variables that we want. So the key is going to be a UUID, and then the entry is going to be a string. Because once again, when in doubt, go with string. That's a good rule of thumb. So now we've defined it. We've defined a hash map that's going to take a key as a UUID and an entry as a string. But what do we call it? Well, we're going to call this one, let's call it cuboid. Or let's call it claim cuboid. You know what? I'm gonna take it back even one. Yeah. I'm just trying to think of how it's gonna proceed later on, and we'll have to fix this. But for right now, let's just go with claim cuboid. Okay. And then what does claim cuboid equal? Well, it equals. I know this is gonna be really hard to figure out. A new hash map with the type of UUID string. And then parentheses. Now, it's got some red lines. So let's discuss what this line is, what the red lines mean, and what we're doing. Well, let's mouse over the first red line. Oh, look, import hash map. And now it just did the import that we could have manually typed in, but it added for us. It's very nice. UUID. It's like, I don't even know what a UUID is. Now, I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure if they are using UUIDs as a Java or something that is bucket related because I've never dealt with this new API stuff. So we could take a guess and then troubleshoot later, or we can look it up. So let's do that. The way that we look it up is we're going to come back to our browser. We're going to go to javadocs.bucket.org. We're going to look at the development build. Just curious to see if there's a 10 yet. Nope. We're still in development. And then we're going to go to API documentation javadocs. And we are going to look for player, because the way that we care about UUIDs is player. Although, let me check to see if there's a UID standard. Nope, not on the one. So I was right, player. And we want to see where our player options are. Event player. And we're going to see if we can find out how they're calling the UUID. I know I've seen it before. So this would be the process that I would go through. And honestly, if I don't see it pretty soon, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in UUID. I'm going to test it. I'm going to see if it works. But why not try to spend 5 minutes of our time trying to, I don't know. figure out what they have done in their code. Now notice that, remember, they have bucket Javas, so it could be any one of, or utility, could be there could be a Java component in there. So they can hide this thing in about a billion places. That's why I'm not going to spend too much time looking for it, and honestly. Now the other thing we could do is we could go bucket UID Java doc. And we might get lucky. We might literally be like, oh yeah. Um, Actually, here's one. All I need to know is, so this UUID fetcher is what he's calling it. It's a custom method. And this is some sort of thing that he's created to make it faster to find the username. But it's all appears to be using Java UUIDs. Alright. Let's see here. Oh, there we go. I don't need to go any farther. If world.java is using UUID, I'm almost positive that they're using Java UUID for, yeah, see, they're using UUID for getUID. So their method is called getUID, and its type is UUID. Boom. So we spent a couple minutes, and now we have a little more confidence that what we're doing is accurate. That it is in fact a UUID from the Java utility branch. Because as I said before, they could have done something completely separate from. Like they could have had like org.bucket.player.java.uuid, and that would be different than Java utility UUID because one is written by Bucket and one is written by Java. And if there's a choice, I always prefer to use the Java, but I might not have had that choice because they might have done something weird in their version of UUID. Okay, so literally, this has created a empty, unpopulated hash map. And if we loaded the plugin right now, it would in fact create a hash map called claim cuboid, and that would be it. That's literally all it would do. So we could, let me see, should I? There's used to be some test code I had to where I could like test different hash maps like quickly to be like boom boom boom, let's see what they got. But I don't think I have any of those codes pre-populated. I'm not sure if I want to. Let's see here. Nah, we're gonna skip it. All right. So we've created a hash map called claim cuboid. Okay. And it's almost 4 o'clock, and I think this is probably a good cutoff point. But before we cut off any further, let me just make sure that there's nothing I can really do to kind of give you a better idea of what we're doing. No, I think this is pretty good. Does anyone have any questions about creating the hash map, or the understanding of the hash map, or any hash map concept? I will say this. So let's just go through this line one more time, and I want to make sure I get one part there. So public and private are something we've discussed. Final and static is something we've not discussed, but for the purpose of your hash maps, please make them final static. Hash map is a 2-column table. In this case, we're using a UUID as a key, string as a entry type. The name of this hash map is claim cuboid, and then in this setup of when we create the hash map, this section equals a new. Notice how it's purple. New means something specific. It means that we're creating a new hash map with this variable to set up. So from now on, this claim cuboid variable will exist and will exist with the stat set. We literally, just for purposes of showing you how it's kind of relationally working, I could have created a map type instead of a hash map type. Um, and the map is your UID string with claim cuboid, but it's created with a new hash map of your UID string. Make sense? I hope so. Um, it's okay if it doesn't completely make sense, as long as conceptually you look at it and go, yeah, if Ryan Fultram asked me to create a hash map, I could know how to put this together syntactically, even though I don't know necessarily how to put data into it yet. Okay, and that's really the most important part of this session. I want to say that one more time. Tuesdays and Wednesdays we're going to be doing this tutorial. We're shooting for 2-hour sessions. One, I don't want to overwhelm anyone's brain. Two, I want people to be able to kind of ask questions and have time to ask questions. So I want to cover pieces and components. And then the last part of this is um, for uploads. If I keep them to 2 hours or less, then I don't have to split it up for uploads because YouTube only allows 2-hour segments of views. And unfortunately, the same thing's for Twitter now. So um, I can't even do a 3-hour or 4-hour session without breaking it up into 2 parts or something. So this is part 3. Part 4 will be next Tuesday. Part 5 will be the following one. Um, Now, seeing that there's such a large amount of work, I'm not saying we should not do the land management, but if people start feeling like land management might be the more complex one to start off with, we can do something different. I will give you a little bit of a preview for the last 2 minutes. Um, the reason I set this up as string, and you're like, how do you set up a cuboid with a string? Because I know that's going to be like the next logical question. And what I'm going to do in this string is I'm literally going to, um, I keep trying to type PA core, so tutorial dot um, tutorial dot why is tutorial not being, oh, I know why. Okay, so I gotta do one more thing. Uh, we need to create a master public variable for this plugin. So public, I'm trying to think the way I want to do it for this tutorial. Alright, let's just do public tutorial, I'm sorry, public KOTC tutorial. Once again, I want to pause and let everyone think about this for a second. We are doing a public, and then normally the next variable is what type it is, right? So how can a type be KOTC tutorial? Like, how did that exist? It actually came into existence the moment we created a class called KOTC tutorial right here. Okay? So public tutorial, and then we want to create something we call it. So the variable is going to be KOTC tutorial. And if you remember, the reason we're doing it with the lower cases as the first word is because that's a fairly common standard with variables in that they get lowercase. The other thing that we talked about is that classes always get all capitalizations. And if you remember, we also talked about what else did we talk about that? I don't remember if we talked about that, so I don't want to get into that one yet. But so now with this KOTC thing, we can actually come in here and kind of call this, so we can go KOTC tutorial dot, actually, because we're in the official one, I don't think it allows me to do it. Come on, you stupid thing. I want to load this hash map now. Why is it being so weird for me? Think, Ryan. I don't think there is a reason. I think it's just messing with me. Oh, I know exactly why. It's a loop. It's a loop on what I'm doing. So because I'm in the class, the literal class KOTC tutorial, what I'm basically trying to type in, if I type in KOTC tutorial here, same thing as if I typed in this. If I type this into any other location, it's doubled referenced. Because I'm inside the file itself, I don't actually need to define what class I'm talking about, because it assumes by default I'm talking about what's called this class. And you don't even need to say this class. So if I typed in claim cuboid, this claim cuboid, well, that's a weird thing. This claim cuboid dot. I will have to figure out why. Oh no, I just didn't have a thing in there. Yeah, I was right. Dot put. Whoops. Sorry. So slow. Okay. Put. I'm trying to think of what a UID would show me. So let's just do an example real fast. Okay. Once again, it might error saying that's not a UUID. That's my little concern. I was trying to find like an actual UUID. And then the cuboid. This is the part I want to actually discuss. So after we have that comma, because the first comma is for your key, your second one is for your entry. So we would put something like location A. I'm trying to think about how I'm going to do this for you guys. We would actually call this cuboid region. So we create a new variable. We'll call this one private, and we're going to call it, what type is it? It's going to be the type of location. And then we would do something like location A. Whoops. Location A. And then that would equal some sort of, we'll just put null in here for right now for our purposes. And you know we got to add location in there. Once again, location for this case, because I can't choose it, is going to have to be org.bucket because I want a bucket location. And if we looked at, I don't want to, it's already 401. And then we create another one, private, location B equals null. And then we would do another one, private, string, cuboid region, and that equals location A, comma, location B. Whoops. Let's try this one more time. Location A plus location B. And actually, we would have to have some sort of separation in there. I'm trying to think of how we would separate them. How about that? That works. Location A. Oh. Yeah, and don't worry about the. So the reason it errors is because this is a location we're entering a thing. Um, let me. I don't know why that's. Did I misspell it? I probably misspelled it. All right. So that's fundamentally like we'll figure like we'll actually discuss the real way to do this, but in a brief nutshell, that's how we're gonna create it. We're gonna like set A, set B, and then convert it to a string, which we'll fix in a little while. Where there's like a comma or a dash or something to separate these fools, um, and then that way all of this data will be saved as an entry, and that is a high level of how we're going to do this. In fact, I'm going to save this just because that was really probably easy to set up. The only reason it's probably erroring now is because of now, I could also say that we could just set up a variable. I forgot to tell you guys this. You don't actually have to define every variable. You can actually set these up. And this basically means that it automatically is going to be whatever default answer there is. In most cases, that's a null. And then later on, we would have some sort of entry in here where it's like get player, you know, or it'd be like player dot get location, and then so like location A would equal player dot get location. Like once again, these are like mostly referential, not literal. Um, like this code wouldn't literally work because of some other things that we're going to get into about, well, player's a type, not an actual person, yada yada yada, exactly. But then once you had all these variables attached and saved, um, you could actually go through this and do it. We actually may, because of this, let me see here. Um, Oops, wrong thing. For example, like off the top of my head, I can't remember what the order of events would be. So like I could just come into the thing and I could be like bucket location to string, and that's string to location. I already know how to do that. And you could actually find it in there. Now, if you can't do it, you can actually go. There's actually a thing to convert strings. Damn it, why do I keep doing that? It's like toString or something. Yeah, it's a toString method. Right, I actually had to remember what I was trying to think of. Dot toString parentheses. Now, what I've basically done in that event is taking this and converted it to a string. And let's do, because you gotta remember what I put in here is gonna be, I don't want to see another one. So like I know that like the location variables are gonna have commas in them. So I don't think they have a semicolon. And the reason it's erroring now is because if you remember from before, anytime we have some sort of string that has like variables and stuff, we actually add pluses into it. And then it's saying this one's not right because we have to add this into it. So now we've actually got a working object. Um, and then you notice it's like errored here because we never actually define location B. So let me just return those back to null values. And I will just give you a clue. If we were to start this program real fast and we added in some sort of command to check what the hash map was, that just from loading the program, because of the way this code is written, there's no like statements of when to do stuff, it would automatically create this variable with a null value, create this variable with a null value, turn them into strings with a colon between them, and then would take then put the key is this, and would put all of this, basically null, comma null, into there. Now, why is this? What is it doing? It wants something that it doesn't have. Um, yeah, I'll figure out why later. But then it would just create null, comma null as the cuboid region. And I think that being 407 is literally the best time to wrap this up. Because this little bitty syntax error is annoying me, and I'll think about why it's doing that later. Blah blah plus blah 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 plus blah 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 to string. Yeah, I don't. I'll think about that. All right. Anyway, so this is like gonna all be done on the fly anyway. So that is the fundamental thing, and then you would export it out to test. Um, it's not pulling up settings. That's fine. You can always double check it. And then KOTC tutorial. I'm not sure which one I'm going to stick with yet. Dash 0 underscore dash underscore 0 dot jar. And if we really wanted to, we could actually call this one 01. But if we did that, we want to change it in the plugin area as well. Okay, that is it for today. And if you have any questions, just let me know. Thank you very much. Have a good day. See you later tonight.